wing of people that are coming in. So you are welcome to go there. What time is it starting, do you know? It's like at 5, 6.
Yeah, it's ridiculously early. That's,
Yeah. So it's I think 6 to 8, something like that. And it's at Millennium Point, and it might be interesting. I mean, it might not be, but it's worth giving it a go because I think there'll be some interesting artists that you might be able to connect with and sort of see what's going on, stuff like that. Grace, is it possible that you can pull those 2 chairs out somehow? Thanks. Yeah. Don't lose your comfortable chair.
This one has a cushion.
Oh. See. Yeah, there you go. That's good. Well done. And then there's another one. Oh, I see, right. Okay. Still too early to begin, or what should we do? Any questions so far?
The dialogue thing, so is it that people were going to watch the play and then talk about it?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And there'll be the director, the artist, the people in it, that kind of thing. So it should be quite interesting on that level. And then there's another guy named Jacob Seligas. He's the kind of person from BIAD who is organizing whatever it is that's going to go on here. And what we're thinking is that there'll be a launch of the various books, which is, okay, that's not quite as interesting, but it'll be drinks. I don't know. So we'll make it interesting. And I think it'll be on the 13th of November, but I'm not 100% certain when that's happening. So far that's all I know. And you're doing something with SAP.
I am.
He says his eyes.
No, on the spot. Yes, I am. It's a slightly amorphous beast at the moment that
Yes.
we're trying to grapple with at the moment, but it'll deliver something towards, what did we say, February next year?
Yeah, week 21.
Yeah. I'm going to need to verbalize this in a better way than at this stage. I'm not going to
Okay.
butch it right now, so
Okay.
bear with me.
Now the other thing I was going to say is that is everyone on Moodle? Okay. Are you on yet? Are you on Moodle?
I still haven't got the activation code.
Yeah. What is the activation code for Moodle?
It said practice, but when I went in to actually go into add bit, that wasn't
Does anybody know what the activation code is?
Nobody's hit it.
There isn't.
Yeah, there isn't.
You can go straight on, I think.
There's one for this.
Certain bits that you
Oh,
try and
yes,
press
sorry.
to get into about your course, you have to have an activation code.
It's usually just a keyword within the module title. So
Beginning-
try several of the keywords in the title.
So try fine art, for example.
Yeah,
Or
okay.
curatorial
Or, I don't think mine's listed somehow.
no.
But I love Moodle, but I never use it. Okay. Because I think it's, sorry, I will learn how to use it, but I haven't yet. Okay. Meanwhile, okay. Shall we begin? I know we're a little bit early and I know we're missing some people. John Sutcliffe has sent his apologies. His ceiling has fallen in his kitchen. It's not so good. Probably doesn't want everybody to know that, but anyway, sorry, John. And I'm not sure where Mark is. And Fionn is now working somewhere else, so he's not able to come. Does anybody know where anybody else is? What about Arch?
So yesterday.
Saw him yesterday. So he is
Tamsin
alive.
was in the building. I don't know why she hasn't shown.
She has got.
And there is Arch,
Tutorial.
right on
Tutorial
cue.
Henry.
Well done.
Oh, right, okay.
Who's in the tutorial?
Tamsin is in tutorial.
Okay, Tam's in the tutorial, okay. All right. So, has everybody got access to the reading?
Yeah.
Everybody? Wow. Are you okay? Just put it down, just slide it down, just slide it down. Are you all right? Who got run over by the painting? I'm so sorry. Maria, you all right? You alive?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Camera should see.
Yeah, we can play that on the camera again and again and again, so you can really feel great about it. I'm so sorry. Okay, that was fun. Right. Anything else? Okay. Everybody has access to the PDFs. Yes, everybody said yes, they're all on the PDFs. Everyone has a course outline. You haven't got a course, I sent you one.
I don't have one either. Like I've gotten all the Dropbox things and like the PDFs, but I don't know like what order. It's just like this like mess of. I'm like, cool.
Ah, that's interesting.
Read all of that.
That's
now.
right, that's
Yeah.
right. Well done, excellent, the right attitude. Okay, right, okay, let me just write down who doesn't have a thing. Okay, so, oh, meanwhile, now that you're sitting in different spots, do the test again. Yeah, so I need your emails basically. So after the class, if you can just come up to me if you haven't got the course outline, and I will print off a course outline if we have time, and I will also send you the course outline so you have it. Anything missing that anybody else needs?
I don't need any, but could I just say something quickly? And only that when we're sort of doing announcements and things, I'm giving a talk at the Barber Institute in 2 weeks.
Oh, great.
On the 28th of October, about the role of text in contemporary art. It's going to be at 12 till 1 if anybody wants to come along.
Can you send that to me as an email, and then we'll send it around?
That would be lovely.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great. And sorry, what day is that?
It's on the 28th,
What day is the 28th?
and Monday.
A Monday. Good, because otherwise it'd be very bad if it were a Tuesday, for example. Okay, great, great. And you'll have text. And does it cost money to go?
No.
Great. Another cost. Good. Anything else? Any other announcements?
People going to go down to Sluice this week, maybe. I'll be there.
What's Sluice?
Sluice Art Fair.
I mean, just,
Um,
does everybody know what Sluice is?
so, same time as Freeze.
No, nobody knows what it is. You have to tell them what it is.
Well, same time as Freeze Art Fair, there's another.
Oh, I
art
see.
fair.
Okay, you had
I'm
finished
kind of
yours.
starting a few steps back.
Okay, so sorry.
So Sluice is another art fair south of the river, down Tower Bridge, just beyond the big bridge. It's I think it's its second or third year, so I'll be there with my curatorial project this Saturday and Sunday.
Does anybody want to make any more announcements about that? And you want to just send me that and I'll send it around.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Does anybody else want to make any announcements? Now we are ready to begin. Okay, I have this sitting here now, this so-called board, because I decided that after I was just saying this to one of the students, one of the artists today, that I thought I was giving completely understandable lectures and that they were just really easy to understand and stuff like this, and I now realize that that's not true. That I'm the only one that's understanding my lectures, and while that could be interesting, that's not sufficient. So I wanted to start drawing for you because you're a visual artist and it'll help you to kind of see what's going on. I realize you're in the wrong spot, but
Are they going to be put on CFAR?
yes.
Oh, what stage? Is it hard to find quite useful to watch?
Yeah, they're uploading at the moment.
As we
As we
speak.
speak, yes.
Okay, well done, Dane. If you have any problems, please bother Dane about the video thing and never speak to Grace about it ever again. Everybody does. Everybody sign this. Oh. What's that? You don't
I
have.
don't think it's been enough.
All right. Okay, everybody, it's a tough task, this one. Okay. I'm going to do, what I'd like to do right now, so that no one gets depressed, so I won't ask you, what do you know? But that's what we're leading up to. Okay, so I'm going to do a short sort of précis, and we're going to end up on today's lecture. hopefully we'll get beyond today, you know, hopefully we'll end to the whole thing. So, is that okay? Okay. I want to start by asking you if you have any secrets. And then I can work with that. Any secrets that you want to share? Nobody has secrets they want to share. That's right. Nobody feels like unburdening a secret. Hello. There's got to be a seat somewhere. There's room on the sofa. Very good. There you go. Yeah, try to be very discreet. Okay. Well done. You fit. Everybody's fit. Good. Good. Okay. Secrets. Anybody got secrets? Anybody got a secret they wanted to say? Anybody tell a lie recently? Oh yeah, no. How about when you were younger? Anybody tell a lie? I looked at this group. Okay. Would you like to share your lie?
Yes. I was 8, and because I'm from Siberia, from a place where my parents were building a hydroelectric station.
As you do.
As you do. And it was the first stage, and it was massive opening, but school children were not invited. So I lied to my parents that the teachers told us that every parent just takes their child, and I told the teachers that my parents were insisting on me going there. I organized it very well, so I went to this opening. I was discovered a week later.
Oh, but a whole week went by.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
I was pretty successful.
And
I achieved my ends.
And what happened when you got found out?
Well, they did tell me off, but I really couldn't care less because I got what I wanted. Which probably says a lot about my morals.
It does say a lot about your morals, and we're going to get into that. That's good. Okay, anybody else have a lie that they've gotten away with up to a certain point? Nobody else, everybody's bad liars, so they've all been caught, have you? Nobody's gotten away with a lie. Okay, Arch, what is your lie?
My lie?
Yeah,
Oh man.
just pick one.
I know, right?
It's
That's-
tough.
trying to think of something that's just not horrifyingly embarrassing.
Oh no, make it horrifyingly embarrassing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go down that road. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I figured out when I was in between like 8th and 9th grade.
Which is what age for people who don't know?
Yeah. So that's like 14-ish. That not every like dude that I knew like made out with other guys and had like a secret boyfriend. But I totally lied to my secret boyfriend. I was like, no, it's just totally normal. Like everybody just can make out with me. That's great.
And did that secret boyfriend
For a
fall that?
while,
Yeah.
yeah. Up
Until he tried it with another secret boyfriend.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so how long did your lie last for?
Oh God, well, I mean, we from like 7th grade to 9th grade, we like
2 years. That's a very long lie. That's
Yeah.
excellent. Anybody else? Anybody? The challenge of how long your lie can last.
I have a friend who told
It's not secretly you, is it?
No, it's not. She told her sister 2 lies that she believed for like 20 years, which was one that, well, maybe not 20 years, maybe like 12 years. One that was one.
This is like a really one-upsmanship situation here. 1 week, 2 years, 12 years. Yeah, go on.
One was that babies are born with gills, and one was that wombles are real creatures. You know, the wombles from the TV show.
No.
Okay. It's like they're like weird puppet animals that scavenge around.
They're recyclers.
Sorry.
They're recyclers.
Yes,
they are.
They're weird. They're weird.
Ah! That's why they're called wimbles.
Wombles.
Wombles. Sorry. Okay, sorry, okay. They have a song as well. Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one
No.
So, and this person actually believed this for 12 years?
Because it was her older sister that told her, so she kind of.
And what about the Santa issue?
I don't know.
Did anybody believe in Santa?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good.
I remember the boy in my
Wait, we
class.
gotta find Tamsin a seat somewhere. Then you can sit on the, I'm sorry about this, you're gonna unfortunately sit on the, perch on the desk here. Sorry. Okay, yes, you remember what?
The name of the boy told me that Santa wasn't real. He's called Tom Swan. I still hate him. And I was 5. And
Tom Swan.
Tom Swan, and he said to me, you know, your mum and dad do that? And I was like, no. And he's like, yeah, they do. You go and ask your sisters. And all my
About
sisters
Santa Claus?
Yeah, they kept
They
it
do
going.
what about Santa Claus?
Huh?
What do they? They dress up as Santa Claus. Now what?
That they bring the presents.
Oh, I see. That was in another area of what your parents could conceivably do that you didn't know
No,
about.
because
Okay,
you know,
right.
you wake up on Christmas morning and your stocking's full. It's like magical.
Yes.
And I still believed it. And then I knew that my sisters had been lying because there'd been loads of whispering. I was the youngest, and I knew that they'd been lying as well. So it was a very traumatic moment, and I still don't like that boy.
So, Tamsin, we're talking about lying. Okay. Do you have a lie? Oh, good. Can you tell it to us? And how long did your lie last?
Well, if I'm late for something and I wish I wasn't.
Wait. World Wide Web. Okay. You sure you want to say this?
No.
Okay. Can you find another lie while you're organizing yourself? Who else has another lie? I just want to, okay, while we're thinking about the lies, hey, what's happening? That's all right. We need more chairs, actually. You know what you could do? No, the floor is no good. The floor is no good. Because I can't see you then. I can't pick on you. Can you hop on, see where the chessboard is there? Chessboard. No, that is not, you're not looking at the chessboard. Chessboard is behind you. Okay. I don't think you should sit on that. I don't think that's going to work. You see the chessboard on top of the, there you go, thank you. That's the chessboard.
Here.
Yeah, can you sit on there? Try not to knock the painting behind it over. That would just be so wrong. Is that going to help? Can you do that? Am I being ignored? Okay. Maybe that's a bad idea.
There are loads of chairs by the article gallery.
You can sit out there.
Bring one through.
Very good. Just don't knock that picture down because the picture costs £700 to frame. No pressure. Are we okay? Are you comfy? It's okay. Well done. Just be real careful. Okay, let's go back. We're talking about lying. Anybody believe in Santa now?
I'm trying to.
You just try to. Does anybody actually believe in Santa? Oh, God, you people. Depressing. Nobody in this room believes in Santa other than myself? Seriously? No one believes in Santa?
Oh, I wasn't brought up with Santa.
Well, neither was I, but that doesn't mean you can't believe in Santa. Nobody believes in Santa. Wow.
Do fairies count?
Fairies count. Do you believe in a fairy? Of course. Does anybody believe in a fairy?
My son believes that the tooth fairy still comes and he's 8, and I forgot.
I thought you were going to say like 38. I thought,
No, he's 8. And he came down in the morning, and I've been drinking a lot on Saturday night, and I completely forgot his tooth had come out just before he went to bed. And so I was really hungover, and he came in and he went, oh God, the tooth fairy's not coming. And I was like, oh no. And I was like, oh, I think that tooth fairy was very busy. And I said, I'm sure the tooth fairy will come.
Okay, so lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did the tooth fairy come?
Well, kind of, yeah.
What do you mean kind of? What type of tooth fairy?
I can't talk about it. It's too bad mothering. I basically just bought him a present. So.
Did you tell him
Bribery.
that was from the tooth fairy, or did you tell him it
I
was from
said
you?
the tooth fairy told me that I could get him something.
Right, which is not untrue, really, since you are also the tooth fairy.
This is terrible, isn't it? And
Okay,
I'm feeling
here's the
really
game that we're playing, so that you get a sense. I'm asking you to talk about how you suspend belief, and how, if it's called a lie, there's a judgment involved, and you know you're being bad. And how, if you don't suspend, if you don't see it as a lie, but in this case, it's kind of what they would call a white lie, which I always find an interesting concept anyway. So it's kind of not really a lie, that it helps you. Or in the case that, you know, is about the fairies, that we have this whole other scenario going on that is actually true. There's not a question about it. Does anybody have anything that they think is at the level of the fairy question that is absolutely true? Nobody? What's happened to you people?
It's probably the camera.
It's the camera. Is it the camera? Are you guys shy? You don't strike me as being shy.
Cynicism.
What's that?
Or the level of cynicism.
Cynicism. Yeah, maybe. I ask you this because I don't. When you're reading Kierkegaard, I do not want you to think that God is the only word that you need to understand in that. You can take out words. You can put in Santa. Or you can put in fairy. In other words, if there was something that compelled you to believe something, not at the level of rationally believing it, like you sat and you thought to yourself, I'm rationally believing this, but in fact you were compelled the same way. If you walk one foot in front of the other, the foot goes like this. You're not thinking, I'm now going to put my foot here, I'm now going to put my foot here, I'm not going to put, you know. You are compelled to do this. Now, let's not think whether or not this is a drive or whether or not it's, you know, innate, none of these things. Just think about every time you read in Kierkegaard God, put in the word fairy and see what happens. Because you're getting tripped up on the God problem, on the God particle that's in this reading. And I understand that because the God particle is difficult in here. Now, this is not to say that there's no such thing as God. This is not to say that there is such a thing as God. It's just to say what you need to get your head around is what happens that gets you from point A to point B without you thinking about it and making a judgment. What do you have to do? Now, in your case, you wanted to go to this hydraulic thingy.
The opening of the first stage.
Yeah.
Incredibly boring.
Yeah. No, it's all right. We can't necessarily choose the most interesting things to lie about, okay? Because it takes talent and time and anyway. And you managed to keep the thing wide open. You didn't tell anyone. You just did X and then you did Y. So you kept a secret, which was in this case a form of a lie, and you saw it as a lie because you knew it wasn't true, what you were telling them. But in order to get where you wanted to go, you had to do something else. And Kierkegaard will call that suspending the ethical. Because what he's going to argue here is that in suspending the ethical, it's the only way you can go from point A to B. And that sets up what he calls a paradox. And now I'm going to step on you because I need to get to the board. So you want to sit on this very uncomfortable seat?
Yeah, I'll go for it.
Okay.
Sorry, I've got lots of.
That's right. Just make a little.
You can stand them.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so now, the word we're going to see here, can you see it? Okay. Oops. Okay. Paradox. Okay. Kierkegaard uses this word a lot, paradox. paradox does not mean, now this means does not mean, that's an equal sign with an X through it, does not mean contradiction. And I'm going to explain why. Paradox. What is the word? Does anybody know Latin? No dox? No doxa? Does anyone have a sense of what the word doxa is? Okay, I'm not going to tell you. I want you to find out what doxa is. D-O-X-A. I can't believe you don't know doxa. You will. You'll learn doxa. Anyway. It has something to do with the law. Anyway. So, does anybody know what para means?
For.
Yeah, beside, for. Para in Spanish is literally for.
Yeah.
And if you had, let's call this doxa, just so you can see something. Doxa basically means law. So if you had paradoxa, and it doesn't mean for, it means, let's say, it means, has anybody had faux, I can't think what they, in the States, I've been outside of the States for so long, I can't remember now. It's like faux something. You call something like faux happy. What am I meaning by that? False. I guess like a faux. What's it? What is faux? Give it some examples of faux something. A faux pas. Yeah, that's true.
It's false. It means false.
Yeah, but that's actually F-A-U-X. But anyway.
Okay.
But anyway. So para is kind of like alongside doxa. It's para is kind of like, paragliding. What's that? What is paragliding? It's like hovering. It's like, obviously you're not also athletic.
So it's like paranormal.
Paranormal, good. What does paranormal mean?
Outside normal.
But it's still attached to normal. It's like alongside normal, but it's just not normal.
Parallel, surely, is the
Parallel,
place where it
excellent, perfect. Parallel is perfect. So paradox means that you've got something running alongside. It's not quite what it seems to be, but it's still part of what is there. So it's not quite what it seems to be, but it's still a part of what is there. Whereas contradiction means this. So if I'm going in this direction, and we have a set field, this field is like cut off, so this, or we can even do it from the whole thing. I go all the way to here, and you can't go beyond this thing, so I'm stuck. If you are anywhere along this line, you're going to be pushed into a tiny little corner. Okay, so you're here, and I'm there. We can't be in the same place at the same time. So if I'm here, you're there. If I go there, you go 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 there. If you get strong, you push me this way, I go back. See that? So contradiction means that for every point on, let's say, on a line, we're just going to use it that way because it's easier to understand, there is the annihilation of the other side. So two objects cannot occupy the same place at the same time. If they do, it's a contradiction. It's contra reality. It means that it cancels each other out. If I say yes, what's a contradiction to yes? No. Well done. Mark, being brilliant, took the great chair. Okay.
Right. Sit wonky.
Anyway, okay. I want you to know I saved that chair from getting painted last year.
It's a great chair. Sorry.
Thank you very much. I feel much better. Okay, so if I say yes, you say no. If I say wet, you say. If I say, okay, but we're going to try it slightly different. If I say wet, you say not wet. If I say cold, you say good. If I say hair, good. No, not hair. So the contradiction cancels out what's there. Okay, so there, not there. There, not there. Got it? Contradiction means It's here, and then I have the same size, the same weight, the same everything, so that I can push aside something rather than being contradiction. Works two different ways. One is that if I push this way, this goes back. If they push this way, this side goes back. That's one version. But the more complex version, because God knows you have to be more complex than this class. If I have this side, or this piece, let's say, let me just get a piece of paper instead, that's easier. Okay, here's a piece of paper. This piece of paper is as wide as it is. This other side does not exist beyond this side, right? So this side is A, and this side is not A, because this side, the not A side, is never on this side, right? So easy. Okay, so this side, not A, is always on the other side, and if I went like that, they would be together, and if I stretch it out, they can never be a different size. So the contradiction of A, not A, is that for everything that's on this side is the not version on this side. Got it?
Yeah.
That's your first really tough thing to understand. And I realize that you guys didn't know this, which is why it's hard to read Kierkegaard. Apart from the fact that he is not the most exciting read. So all that's on this side, its contradiction, is on this side. And if I go like this, it's not like one runs to keep up with the other one. They're literally glued together. So the not of something is on, let's say, the opposite side. So we have A, not A. A, not A. We could say front, back. But if I say front, back, you may not realize that for every aspect of the front is exactly the same thing, except it's called the back. Okay? Whereas if I just said front and back, if I said go to the front of the house, that might have an awning for windows. If I say go to the back of the house, it might have, you know, I don't know, a dungeon. I don't know, sorry, got carried away there. Whereas, if I say front, not front, you know that whatever points are here, the not part of the points are on the other side. Are we okay? Okay, we're going to get a little harder now. Okay, so side, what's the opposite of side?
Side.
Good. What's the opposite of front? What's the opposite of wet?
Not
Good! Good. Not so with paradox. Paradox means that two things can happen at the same time. That's what makes it weird. Paradox is weird, quirky, odd. Oh, it's paradoxical. So don't confuse paradox with irony, okay? Anybody know Suzanne Vega, the singer?
Yeah.
Okay, she's got that song on being ironic. Sadly, she's not being ironic. It just, I know, I mean, and for those of us that are grammatically challenged, in the sense that we were taught grammar, and therefore have to suffer bad grammar wherever we go, you know, it's very difficult, because that's a great song. But sadly, it's not ironic. Okay, just want to
I think it was sung by Alanis Morissette, actually.
What?
It was Alanis Morissette.
Thank you. That's ironic. All right, now, paradox means that many things that ought not to go together, like let's say this side and this side being on the same side, that's a paradox. Okay, so a paradox is when the weird things happen when they shouldn't be happening.
So might that be if you turn that into a Moby strip?
Not yet, not yet. That's right, sink down, lower. now we're going to turn this into a Mobius strip. Okay, does anybody know what is a Mobius strip?
It's got a twist. So,
And what does that mean?
and it's a
It's
seamless
only just
join.
got one
And
side.
it has one, who said that? Yeah, it has one side. Does everybody know who this is? Good. Checking to see if everybody has names down. I'm going to do this every now and then. Well done. By the way, did you get the PDF to join?
Yeah.
Okay. So it only has one side. So a Mobius strip, M-O-B-I-U-S, which basically looks like a figure 8, like that, or the infinity sign. I'm going to show you now. Do I need this information? No. Okay. Oops. Didn't work. Let's write it down this way. Okay. And then I'm going to show you how you can take a three-dimensional object, namely this piece of paper, and make it into a one-dimensional object. Okay, so you take this and you just twist it, like Townsend was saying, and then you kind of connect it. So you see how I've connected it there? And now, if I just sort of, I don't have a piece of tape. Can you just hand me that stapler? Okay, this is kind of not really appropriate for a Mobius strip, but. Okay, now, if I take my pen and never lift it up, and I go along, and I draw on, it's too tiny a Mobius strip to draw on, and I just keep drawing, what do you think is going to happen?
Continues.
Yes, it's going to come. What?
It's a strip.
Okay, I need a bigger strip here, but anyway, the point is that even though I'm slightly,
You draw on what seems to be two sides.
you draw on what is in fact one side, and it's actually on both sides. Okay, it's really not because I didn't go all the way because I got bored. But anyway, so a Mobius strip is called a singularity. And a singularity, clue is in the first part of the word, single-sided, has only one side. Now when I say side, I don't mean space, I mean dimension. Okay, so a little bit of sweat moment. So singularity. Now Kierkegaard speaks about singularity in the second part of the book, when he's going on about the fairy, the big fairy. Kind of a nasty fairy, but anyway, let's not go there. And he says that the singularity creates a paradox. See, unlike contradiction, which can have two sides, in fact, that is what it has. Contradiction is, if I say wet, it's not wet. If I say pen, it's, so it doesn't have to be flat, right? It can be like, look, this is not flat. If I say Johnny, not Johnny, okay? And not Johnny doesn't mean everything that is not Johnny, like outside, like all of you are not Johnny. Not Johnny is literally the not version of me. See how painful this gets? Okay, so you're getting it? You see how it, like I was showing you the easy part with a piece of paper. So you see on the other side, the not side. But when you think about it, let's say if I say Johnny, not Johnny, I don't mean Johnny, rest of world. I mean Johnny, not Johnny is in the same spot.
Like Alice through the Looking Glass.
In what way?
Well, because everything appears to be the same as the other side, but it's kind of...
So it's in front of her.
And it's a total relationship of not being.
Probably, but that's a very complex leap. Can we leave Alice? What's that?
Matter and antimatter.
Matter and antimatter. Yes, another great. Yes, but the key here is to think that it's not. You're not going anywhere. It's not like I'm here and the not me is all of you. That is not me. Not me is the not me that's attached to me. Okay, you are not me. No, you are actually a not version of not me. No, that's not coming out right either.
We don't use profanity or double negatives here at True Directions.
Oh, thank you. I know where that's from. Okay, well done. Okay, so the Mobius strip, the Mobius, one dimension, doesn't have the not side. Another example of a singularity would be what, if you're thinking about Kierkegaard, or maybe that's too fast of a leap. God would be a singularity. Faith is a singularity. Secrets are a singularity. Abraham is not a singularity. Abraham can have a not Abraham happening. No, God, secrets, art. They're singularities. Death.
Ethics? Because you say that you have to suspend ethics.
Yes, but you have to suspend ethics, not because ethics is a singularity.
Okay.
Let's back up, because I don't want to go too fast, because I realize I've been going too fast before. Okay, so we have these two sides. A, not A. That's a contradiction. But if we have a Mobius strip, we just have one side. Now the weird thing about a one-sided anything is that it doesn't have a relation. It's got no relation. It's got no, because it's only itself. And there's very few things that can only exist as one-sided, only themselves. God is one of those things. The present is one of those things. Certain forms of time, like now. Like, can you ever get out of now? I mean, I hate to do this to you. Sweat. Oh, I bought this thing for the class. Damn, I left it at home. I was in the country the other day, which for an urban person that means pretty much anything outside of Zone 1 of London. Anyway, I'm okay. And this was a great store that was selling squash things and, you know, seeds and whatnot. And they had, I love garden centers. They always have weird things in garden centers. And I'm not a gardener, as you could probably tell, but my partner is. And as a result, I go to these centers thinking, what can I buy that is like interesting and nothing to do with plants? And I found this monster that when you squeeze it, its brain pops out. It's fantastic. And I just thought we should have it in the classroom so that when it's like knife in the head, you can just go, and the brain just pops out. But I said,
we should have one.
You have one.
And the moment our brains are boiling.
That's right, just squish it. You just squish it. You know, that's what I can tell. Okay, now, back to this. So the singularity means, for the purposes of today's lecture with Kierkegaard, and anything before you get to quantum physics, because it changes once you get to there. You'll be thrilled to know, but you don't need to worry about that until February. Okay, so we're only worrying about what you have to worry about now. A singularity in modern physics, meaning Newtonian physics, before that, so from Newtonian physics backwards, or Kierkegaard, a singularity does not bring in a relation. A secret, the thing that makes a secret work, is that it cannot be told. Not that you ought not to tell it, but it cannot be told. It's not tellable. Not because it's a secret, but because it can't be told, it's a secret. And we're going to come with a few examples, but let me just backtrack here. So what Kierkegaard starts to develop is he says, look, Abraham told the secret, or it had the secret. He kept the secret from, you know, the family, from whatever. And actually, he was going to do something that was pretty unethical. He was going to murder his son. But as it turns out, all singularities are unethical. all singularities suspend the ethics. Here's where it gets difficult. So I'm going to try and walk you through this. If you're being a responsible adult or a responsible anything, you're responding, you're being held accountable. You have an accountability to something. That accountability brings in morals, it brings in ethics, it brings in, I've got to do my homework, whatever. It's got to be my bad mother, or a good mother, or whatever this mother thing is. You know, you have this relationship. But in a singularity, that is suspended. That relationship is suspended. And what, if you get nothing else out of Kierkegaard, you must try and learn what it is to suspend your disbelief. Or, as he puts it, to believe. I do believe in ghosts. I do believe in ghosts. Quote from The Cowardly Lion, Wizard of Oz. Great film. Okay, you must suspend your disbelief. He's not asking you to suspend your belief. He's asking you to suspend your disbelief. That's very different. Hence, he talks about Descartes and the question of doubt. Doubt, like I was saying before, I thought was so brilliant, but I don't know if anyone but me thought it was as brilliant as I thought it was, which is that, you know, when Doubting Thomas puts his hand in the famous wound of Jesus Christ, and that's not the doubt that that Descartes is talking about, because that particular doubt has a relation. That relationship is to believing, and he has to prove that Jesus is there somehow, and he does this by putting his hand in the wound. But the doubt that Descartes is talking about suspends that. It suspends belief or disbelief. Questions. Where are we heading? Can you hear? What are you hearing? Can you hear this? What are you hearing here? Don't know what you're hearing. What are you hearing? Voices. A few. You hearing anything? Anybody hearing anything?
I'm not sure how to suspend disbelief.
See, it takes a long time to become a child. This is from.
Believe that you can.
This is Picasso, but I have now taken it over because I think it's such a good sentence. You know, I mean, anybody heard of Quentin Crisp?
Oh, yes.
Well, he says it takes a long time to become a virgin. Love him. Okay, same idea, only different. Okay, it takes a long time to understand how to suspend disbelief. It takes a long time to understand what it is to be a child. I don't mean understand like rationally understand. I mean literally. Yeah, go on.
Fear.
And what does that mean?
Not that you can't, perhaps at that moment you're not anything else, but I don't think that's right.
No, but close. Anybody?
It's about credulity. It's about somehow increasing your
Acceptance.
credulity.
Yeah.
Direct experience.
It's being in the moment, really.
Being in the moment. And what does it mean to be in the moment?
That children are absolutely present. They have no sense of past and future when they're truly innocent. They're
Yeah.
just there. And they're not informed by the past. They're just there all the time. We lose that.
And then we become responsible. Okay, so the takeaway from this is the idea of what does it mean to suspend your ethics. Not because you want to actually secretly be a bad person, though. It doesn't have to do with that. It has to do with the fact that in order to proceed, you need to figure out how to suspend your disbelief, which Kierkegaard calls faith. Now, he attaches it to God. You can attach it to a fairy, or wherever you want it, to Santa. But you must learn how to suspend your disbelief. But in suspending your disbelief, there's another thing you need to learn, and that is how to recognize the tremble. Because if you suspend your disbelief and just believe, like in a dogmatic way, that's no better than always questioning, always questioning, always questioning, always questioning. Yes?
Is this attunement part?
This is the attunement. Good. So in suspending the ethical, what's being suspended in the ethical, in the teleological suspension of the ethical, well, is the ethical, but what that allows is for something to take place. Take place. Take it. That's violent. It's a violent taking. That's what he's getting at. He actually says, let me see if I can find it. In some kind of, yes, on page 64, quoting Luke, sadly, he says, in the order of human generality, a duty of hate is implied. He says, and then he quotes Luke, chapter 14:26, quote, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his or her own father and mother, his or her wife stroke husband and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his or her own life, I've added to her, and it'll say, he or she cannot be my disciple. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father, his own mother, his own wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. So what Kierkegaard then says, recognizing this is a hard saying, oh, sorry, this is from Derrida's text. That's where you can't find it. It's from The Gift of Death. Sorry. Derrida then says, recognizing, Kierkegaard nevertheless upholds the necessity for hatred. He refines its rigor without seeking to make it less shocking or paradoxical. But Abraham's hatred for the ethical, and thus for his own family, friends, neighbors, nation, but and outside of humanity as a whole, his own kind of species, must remain an absolute source of pain. So this relationship between the suspension of the ethical and the ability to keep how can I put this? This ability to suspend the ethical and the ability to continue to, in this case, he was going to murder the son. It would only matter if he loved the son. It would only, quote, count. If you don't really care about something, it's not a sacrifice. It's a bit of a cheap shot, I feel, on some level. But anyway, the argument here is that the love, you need to love something in order to know the pain of what is required for you to move on. And that pain can never leave you. Once the pain leaves, it's over. It's not, the moment is, the paradox that he's talking about isn't that Abraham was a religious person and then was going to kill his son. The paradox is that one is is maintaining this disbelief, is suspending disbelief, i.e. is believing, while simultaneously not saying anything, because the act is so horrible, that the thing is so much of an attack on the legitimation of what one would know as the order, that it cannot be said. It might be found out. It might be found out in a week, or in 2 years, or in 12 years, or in your case, 24 hours. with the tooth fairy. You might be found out, but how long can you keep that secret going? And how long in keeping the secret going before you are found out, do you know that someday your child is going to learn that Santa is not alive or not real? There's this pain relationship. And that's the paradox. The paradox exists because at the same time of loving, you're hating, and at the same time as loving and hating, you know perfectly well that if you are found out, it's annihilation. It's a disaster. Yes, question? Yeah, Grace.
I was just going to say there's a film out at the moment called Prisoners. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it made me think of this when I was watching it because he has a complete conviction in the fact that he believes that this man who he kidnaps and tortures has taken his daughter and he knows where his daughter is. And it goes through a process of him, obviously, with the police, finding other people who could possibly be this person that's taken his child. But he just has a complete belief that it's this person, and he is willing to kind of he does torture him. And unfortunately, it turns out that he is kind of linked, but he is innocent in the end. So it's quite a good, it's a very traumatic film, but it's quite a good thing to, if you haven't got anything of your own to link this to, the story, it makes it a lot clearer in your head when you're kind of hearing this and how he reacts to things and how he's extremely distraught that he's doing this to another human being, but he has such a belief and conviction that he's doing the right thing even though he's murdering somebody essentially, that he will continue with it. So.
Yes, which is pretty heavy duty.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, how do you make a decision about it? And what Derrida argues is that you don't make a decision. That the moment of decision is the moment of responsibility, is the moment of ethics, is the moment of morals. That in order to have this level of belief, you have to suspend the ethical. And then the question really becomes, well, why would you do that? Now, you said that if you don't have your own story to tell, then you can watch, everyone has this story, everyone in this room in particular, because you've all had to get here. And you've all had to get here by climbing over somebody or something, somehow. And that you had to do however you want to convince yourself. I wasn't doing it, I'm really a good person, whatever. Or not even saying that you had to go. And the secret you held from your parents or from your kids or from whomever, your partner, you might not even have known that you had this secret. That's how secretive the secret can be. Sometimes it just shows up as a tremble. Sometimes it is just in the moment. So now I'm going to back up again because I want you to get a sense of how the secret goes. And I want us to read aloud something I'm going to pass around. I hope that this, did you think it's okay? You read this already, the Bataille thing.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, we're going to try it. What's that?
Bit disturbing?
Bit disturbing. It's going to be a bit disturbing. Does anybody have a disturbance? Is anybody okay about listening to people throw up and talk about cocks and things? Is that okay?
Is it an extract from one of his books?
Yeah.
Which book is it?
Scream from Silence. It's The Dead Man. So, are you ready? George Bataille Bataille. Georges. Georges. George Bataille. I was trying to think of how you could understand this secret. And I'm going to read, I'm going to pass around, I want each person to take we'll just go around, and each person take a chapter. There's 24 chapters. It's a very short book. And to read this bit, and while you're hearing your comrades speak, think about what is the secret that's being passed along in this, so that we can get a sense of how the secret goes, okay, because this is, okay, so here's the book. This is called Violent Silence, and it's by this guy named Paul Buck, who's a very interesting character. I don't know if you can you read this? Can you see these letters?
Just about.
Just about, okay, I'm gonna just take this out here. Okay, right, I will start off. Want to just pass around something? Now, there are 28 chapters, and I will read one. I'll read the first two, and then I'll pass it on. Okay, because I have 3, 4. So everybody, whoever gets a card can read the next thing. Okay, are you ready?
Mhm.
Okay, so George Bataille was, does anybody know who George Bataille, anybody, have people not heard of George? Okay, let me start again. George Bataille is French, is a very interesting philosopher. He was what's called an excremental, like shit, philosopher. He believed that philosophy, if it's any good at all, should always be shit. There's a whole movement around these people called experimental philosophers. He wrote many, many books. They're mostly philosophy with a lot of porn involved. He's got one of the main books is called Visions of Excess, or Blue Noon, or the Accursed Share. These are all things. So if you find any of this interesting, great. This is called this is a very short book. It's however long these pages are. Okay, so we'll start off. The Dead Man by George Bataille. Chapter 1. Mary is alone with dead Edward. Edward fell back, dead. An emptiness formed within her, raising her like an angel. Her bare breast stiffened. An ominous shudder bore her into the fantastic church, where exhaustion, silence, and the feeling of the irremediable finished her. In ecstasy above the horror of the house, Mary despaired. She suddenly pulled herself together, playing with her despair. She suddenly pulled herself together, playing with her despair. Dying, Edward had besought her to be naked. She was pale, disheveled, her firm breast thrust through the ripped dress. The horror took advantage of her entirely. Entirely, as does the murderer of the dark night. 2. Mary goes out of the house. Time had just denied the laws to which fierce subjects. She tore off her dress and slung her coat over her arm. Crazy and naked, she rushed headlong in the downpour. Her shoes squelched in the mud, and the rain drenched her. She badly needed to go, but she contained herself. In the stillness of the woods, Mary stretched out on the ground. She pissed slowly and deliberately, the urine running between her legs. Lying on the ground quietly, she sang with a grating voice, "My nudity, an atrocity, an atrocity." Then she got up and put on her raincoat and ran into Quillet, straight to the door of the inn. Can you read those two? Can you see it?
On the side?
Yeah.
3. Mary waits outside the inn. Bewildered, she hesitated in front of the door, lacking the courage to enter. Trembling, she heard the shouting and the drunken singing of the girls and men coming from within the inn. There she was trembling, but trembling gave her pleasure. She thought, I'll go in. They'll see me naked. She wobbled. Leaning against the wall, she opened her coat. She slid her long fingers into her crack. She listened, burnt up with anguish, breathing in the algae odour of genitals on her fingers. It was raining. A mild wind slanted the rain. In the cellar-like darkness, she heard a girl's voice, a sad working-class song. Heard from the dark outside, the voice, low and muffled by the walls, was harrowing. It ceased. Applause and the stamping of feet followed, then cheers. Mary was sobbing in the gloom. She wept in rage and without tears, her fist in her mouth. 4. Mary goes into the public bar. Mary was about to enter. She was trembling. She was going to enter. She opened, took 3 steps into the room. A draught closed the door behind her. The door forever slammed on her. That violence of slamming came from the depths of the ages. Farmhands, patron, and some girls stared at her. She was motionless at the entrance, muddy, hair dripping, an evil look. There she was, coming out of the gusts of the night. Her coat covered her. She opened its collar.
Okay, 5. She asked in a low voice, "Got a drink?" The patron replied from behind the bar, "Calvados?" She served up a small glass on the counter. Mary did not want it. "Give me a bottle and some large glasses," she said. Her voice, still raw, was harsh. She added, "I want a drink with them." She paid. A fair-headed farm boy, muddy boots, said shyly, "Did you come to have some fun?" "That's right," said Mary. She tried to smile. A smile seared through her. She took a seat next to the boy, pressed her leg against his, and taking his hand, put it between her thighs. When the farmhand touched her crack, he moaned, "God." The others, flushed, fell silent. One of the girls, getting up, pulled back a flap of her coat. "Get a knifeful of this," she said. "She's stark naked." Mary offered no resistance and emptied her glass. She likes her drink," said the patron. Mary responded with a belch. 6. With sadness, Mary said, "That's right."
Wait, you gotta read the...
Oh, sorry. 6. Mary takes out a drunkard's cock. With sadness, Mary said, "That's right."
Mary takes out a drunkard's cock, in case you didn't get that.
Locks of wet black hair stuck to her face. She shook her pretty head. She got up and undid her coat. The empty coat dropped. A lout who was drinking at the back made a rush. He was bawling, "Naked woman for us." The patron careered in on him. "I'll get you by your snout." She caught him by his nose and she twisted. "No, here's where," said Mary. "It's better." She approached the drunkard and unbuttoned him. The cock she took from his pants was floppy. The object provoked much laughter. In a stroke of rage, Mary, red as a mad person, knocked back another glass. The patron slowly opened her eyes up like headlights. She touched between her buttocks. "Good enough to eat," she said. Once again, Mary filled her glass. She gulped as if dying, and the glass fell from her hands. The crack of her arse lit up the room.
Mary dances with Piero. One of the farmhands was keeping out of the way, full of hatred. This big farmhand, much too handsome, had long crepe rubber-soled boots that looked too new. Mary came up to him, bottle in hand. She was tall and red and flushed in the face, her legs unsteady within her sagging stockings. The farmhand took the bottle from her and swigged. He bawled in a loud, unforgivable voice, "Enough!" Ramming the empty bottle down on the table. Mary asked, "Do you want some more?" He smiled by way of answer. He treated her like a conquest. He wound up the pianola. He came back, sketching a dance, his arms rounded. He grabbed Mary by the hand. They danced an indecent arse-grasp rumba. Sickened, Mary threw herself into it totally, her head tossed back. Mary falls down dead drunk. Suddenly the patron rose, crying, "Piero!" Mary was falling. She slid away from the arms of the handsome farmhand who stumbled. The frail body, having slipped, fell with the thud of a dead animal. "Trollop," said Piero. He wiped his mouth on the back of his sleeve. The patron dashed forward. She knelt down, lifting the head. Hideously, a slaver flowed from the mouth. One girl provided a damp cloth. Mary came round in a little while. She asked very faintly, "Some booze?" Give her a glass, said the patron to one of the girls. One held out a glass. She drank and said, again. The girl refilled the glass and Mary gulped as if her time was short. Spread in the arms of the girl and the patron, she raised her head. Again, she said.
9. Mary wants to speak. Farmhands, girls and patrons surround Mary, waiting to see what she was going to say. Mary pronounced just one word. Dawn, she said, and her head fell back. The patron inquired, what did she say? No one could answer. 10. Mary is sucked off by Piero. The patron said to the handsome Piero, suck her off. Shall we put her on a chair? Asked one girl. 7 of them grabbed hold of her body. They jammed her arse onto the chair. Kneeling, Piero placed her legs over his shoulder. The handsome lad gave a conquering laugh and darted his tongue into her hairs. Sick, uplifted, Mary seemed happy. She smiled without opening her eyes. Unbearable, a joy carried into an immense sky where from black clouds an earthly warmth emanated.
I'll treat the other side. Or give it to who can read.
Mary kisses the patron's mouth. She felt uplifted, frozen, her life dashed. The cold immensity flooded by day before her. She was no longer separated from Edward. Naked arse and naked belly, the smell of arse and salivated belly was the very smell of death. Drunk from booze and sobs, but not crying, she inhaled a musty funeral smell. She pulled the mouth of the patron to her, and she opened the abyss of her lips to its decay. Mary drinks from the bottle. Mary thrust the patron away, and only in her eyes saw her head reeling with joy. The virago's face shone with distraught tenderness. She too was drunk, pitifully drunk, and her eyes rolled with devout tears. Looking at those tears and seeing nothing, Mary sank into the delirium of the dead man. She said, I'm thirsty. Piero sucked non-stop. The patron eagerly handed her the bottle. Mary took long gulps and drained it.
13. Mary comes. A jostling, a terrifying scream, a crashing of broken bottles, Mary's open legs jerking like a frog's. The quarrelling and the bawling boys barged into each other. The patron helped Mary, sat her on the bench, seated. She had vacant eyes. Outside the wind, the squalls were raging. In the darkness, shutters were banging. Listen, said the patron. They heard the wind howling amongst the trees, lengthily prolonged like the cry of a mad person. At that moment the door opened. A gust came into the room. Mary, upright, cried out, Edward! 15. Mary meets a dwarf. A man came in from that dreadful night, closing an umbrella with difficulty. His short, rat-like silhouette appeared in the doorway. Quick, my lord, come in, said the patron. She tottered. The dwarf moved forward without replying. You're drenched, said the patron. She succeeded in closing the door. The little man had a surprising severity, broad and hunchbacked, head sunk into his shoulders. He greeted Mary, then turned towards the farmhands. Good evening, Piero, he said, shaking hands with him. Help me out of my coat, will you? Piero helped the Count undo his coat. The Count pinched his leg. Piero, who was smiling, hung the garment up. The Count shook his hand amiably with everyone. Mary, he asked, bowing. He sat down at Mary's table, facing her. Bring some bottles, said the Count. I've drunk enough to piss in my seat, said one girl. Drink till you He stopped dead, rubbing his hands together. He had a demonic ease.
Someone else could read that side.
The other side.
sees
Wait, what
Edward's
chapter?
ghost. Chapter 15. Mary sees Edward's ghost. Mary remained motionless. She was looking at the Count and her head was spinning. Paul, she said. The Count filled the glasses. She said again softly, I'm going to die at dawn. The still blue eyes of the Count stared at her. His blonde eyebrows stood out, accentuating the lines on his excessively broad forehead. Mary raised her glass and said, drink up. The Count himself raised the glass and drank. They downed their drinks together in one gulp. The patron came and sat beside the wretch. I'm afraid, Mary told her. Her eyes shone, but sickly. She gave a sort of hiccup. She whispered in a broken voice in an old woman's ear. It's Edward's ghost. What Edward? Asked the patron in a low voice. He's dead, said Mary in the same broken voice. She took the woman's hand and bit it. Bitch, shouted the beaten woman. But freeing her hand, she caressed Mary and, kissing her shoulder, she said to the Count, she's nice all the same. Chapter 16, Mary climbs onto the bench. It was the Count's turn to ask, who's Edward? You don't know who you are anymore, said Mary. Her voice was choking her. Making a drink, she begged the patron. She seemed weary. The Count drank 2 glasses, but he admitted, alcohol doesn't affect me much. The solid little man whose head was too large stared blankly at Mary, as if with the intention of embarrassing her. He stared at everything in the same way, his head stiff between his shoulders. He called, Pierrot. The farmhand came up to him. This young child, said the dwarf, makes me horny. Won't you sit down here? The farmhand near him, the Count went on cheerfully. Dear good luck, Pierrot. Blank me. I don't dare ask this child to do it. He smiled. Unlike you, she is not used to monsters. At that point, Mary climbed onto the bench.
What chapter?
17. Mary passes on the Count.
Can you say it a little louder?
Okay. Mary said to the Count, I'm afraid of you. You are there in front of me like a bollard. He did not reply. Pierrot took hold of his cock. He was motionless. Go away, screamed Mary, or I'll piss on you. She climbed onto the table and squatted. I'll be delighted if you do, replied the other. His neck was inflexible. When he spoke, his chin moved. Mary pissed. Pierrot was wonking the Count, while a jet of urine slammed into his face. The Count reddened and the urine drenched him. Pierrot wonked as he drank. The penis spunk onto the table and the drop trembled from head to toe like a dog shaking bristle. 18. Mary drenched herself with urine. Mary was still pissing on the table, among the bottles and glasses. She splashed urine over herself with her hands. She drenched her legs, her arms, her breasts, and her face. Look at me, she said. I'm beautiful. Squatting, her Count level with the monster's head, she opened her crack promptly.
So I'll read the other side.
Uh, 19, I think. Mary had a venomous smile. It was a nightmarish sight. One of her feet slipped. Her cunt struck the head of the Count, who, losing his balance, fell. The pair tumbled with a crash, sprawling together on the ground. 20. Mary is brought to heel by Pyrrha. There was an unshapely tussle on the floor. Mary broke loose, but the dwarf's cock, and he howled. Oh, sorry, bit. And he howled. Pyrrha floored Mary and spread her on the floor, opening her arms like a cross. The others held her down by her legs. Mary growled, "Leave me alone." Then she fell silent. She was panting, broken like a beast. Her eyes closed, but she opened her eyes. Pyrrha reddened, sweating, had his face near hers. "Fuck me," she said.
21. Mary strikes an agreement with the Count.
Can you be a little louder because it's hard to hear at that end?
Mary strikes an agreement with the Count. Mary, who overheard him, just looked at the Count. He stood up. "Never," he murmured, "has anyone spoken to me in that way." "You can go," she said, "if you're coming." The Count interrupted her sharply. "I'm coming with you. You're going to give yourself to me." She remained violent. "It's time," she said. "Come on." 22. Mary and the Count go into the house. They walked briskly. It was daylight when they arrived. Mary pushed the gate. They went along a path lined by old trees. The sun gilded the top. Mary, in her rage, knew herself to be in tune with the sun. She showed the Count into her bedroom. "Get undressed," she said. "I should be waiting for you in the other room." The dwarf undressed hurriedly. The sun through the leaves speckled the wall. The speckles of light danced.
You can pass that down. Dang,
So we're on 22 now.
yeah, just louder because this end can't hear you too well.
Mary dies. The Count had an erection. His cock was long and reddish. His naked body and his cock had a devilish deformity. His head and his hunched shoulders were swiftly. He desired Mary and confined his thought to the strength of that desire. He pushed the door as he saw her, wretchedly naked. She was waiting for him, naked before a bed, provocative and unsightly. Drunkenness and exhaustion crushed her. "What's wrong?" said Mary. The dead man filled the room. The Count stammered, humbly, "I didn't know." He had to lean against a piece of furniture. He was going to limp. Mary smiled hideously. "Impossible," she cried. She had a file in her hand. And then 23. The dead. The Count caught sight of the two heresies, going to the cemetery, one behind the other. The vehicles were going along across the plain. He hissed between his teeth, "She had me." He let himself slip. A dead sound momentarily disturbed the water of the canal.
Do you mind if I don't?
No,
read
no.
that loud?
What's that?
Can I pass that on?
Yeah. Pass it on. Pass it on to Dane.
At 23, Mary vomits. What Mary read in his eyes was the certainty of death. That face expressed only disenchanted emptiness, a powerless but insatiable hope. When she had a sharp shiver of hatred, she began to tremble before death. Nothing persisted in her but rage. She got up, gritting her teeth before the kneeling monster. Standing, she wobbled. She recoiled, looked at the Count and vomited. "You see," she said. "Relieved?" asked the Count. "No," she said. She looked deliberately at the pool of vomit before her. Her coat, torn, barely covered her. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To your house." 24. Mary provokes the dwarf. "My house?" Mary groaned, and her head spun. "Are you the devil himself to want to go to my house?" she asked. "I've sometimes been told," replied the dwarf politely, "that I'm the devil." "The devil," said Mary. "I shit before the devil." "A moment ago you vomited. I'll shit." She squatted and shat on the vomit. The Count was still on his knees. Mary leant against an oak. She was sweating in fear. She said, "Look, it's nothing. In a minute, at my house, you'll be trembling." She shuddered, wild, her head thrown back. She took him by the ear and pulled. "You coming?" she said. "Willingly," said the Count. He added, under his breath, "She's as bad as I am."
Any more? That's it. What's the secret?
Death.
She's going to kill the count.
Trembles.
Or, okay, who's Abraham in this?
Mary.
Mary. Okay, good. How did you come to that conclusion?
Because she killed the count.
She doesn't kill the count.
No, she keeps the secret. Yeah.
What happened to Edward?
Edward dies, but we don't know how.
We don't know how.
She's Abraham after the deed, isn't she? When God didn't stop, God did not provide the lamb.
That's exactly what the story's about. God did not provide the lamb.
So suddenly the singularity, the person outside the universal, who managed to do the sacrifice, is back into the universal, back with the ethical facing it, her in this particular case. And so the whole weight of the morals and ethical that the society operates with, that person is faced with it and with the guilt.
But the more and more the story went on, the more gross it got, no?
Yes.
The more harder it got to listen.
Well, because, I don't know, because once you have broken up with the ethical, I think you just want to experience, well, not you, well, one just wants to experience.
But you see,
to break it even further.
Be careful, because the intention is not part of this. This is why this is such an important story. And I'm sorry if anybody got overly upset about this. The first time I read this, I was in the British Library. They had a thing, this is in the olden days, where the British Library was the proper British Library, and it was in the thing called the reading room. And there was a thing called the cupboard, which you could only read in, we had all the sexual books. You had to keep your hands on the tables. I'm not kidding you, it was really quite impressive. Like, I was just thinking, what do they think you're gonna do? Like, anyway, and this book was not in the cupboard. So, because it didn't have anything, I mean, you'd think that they would have had a clue with the cover itself being, you know, I don't know, they missed it though. So, I was reading this, and as I was reading it, I started weeping, like, just because it was, to me, it was very moving. You know, shockingly moving thing, and I didn't know which part was the moving part, what was moving me, the hatred, the anger, the despair, whatever. Now, I couched it like this because I don't want to read into what you're feeling, but I think that some of that has to be coming through. So there is no lamb that gets put in for Edward. Whether or not she kills him is irrelevant. He dies. She has some sort of reaction to that death and then goes off to the bar. So what happened? You're right about talking about this thing with the universal and so on and so forth, but I want to make sure that people can unpack that. You can hear what you're saying. Because the key here is once you suspend the ethical, you're playing with fire. And you have to know that. And if you don't know that, stop now. Do not go into art. You have to know that it's toxic. Now, in the story of Abraham, it sounds like it's toxic to Isaac. But that's actually not the story of Abraham. The story of Abraham is that it's toxic to Abraham. And that's what you need to grasp here. I mean, obviously, if Isaac had died, it would have been a little bit toxic to Isaac. But Isaac didn't die. So, in the story where Isaac does die, i.e., the dead man story, this is the story of what happened to Abraham, dressed up as Mary. Comment. Anybody have a comment? No comment?
So just trying to deal with what he's done now that he's back in, now it's not suspended, so he's actually got like the consequences of it.
But that whole path is the suspension.
What, so he's still suspended when in this bit?
He
Sorry,
being Mary.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Mary.
I like the idea that we can suspend the genders as well as the ethics. Okay, so Mary, stroke Abraham, is actually, when Mary is drunk, anybody ever been drunk? Okay, you know that one of the great things about being drunk is that you don't have to account for, supposedly, you don't account for your actions. Of course, most people remember their actions, but it's only, you gotta be really blind drunk to not remember what's going on. And that ability to be drunk so that you can suspend the responsibility of your actions, that's the moment we're talking about. It's just the problem is if you're blind drunk, you're not going to feel that tremble. Or you're not going to feel the tremble in the way that Mary starts. Because Mary, no matter how drunk she gets, she can't take off the fact of what has happened. It doesn't matter how drunk. She can't get drunk enough to not feel.
She can't exit. She can't
She
get
can't
out.
exit
She can't
it.
get away.
Right. She is in the suspended ethical.
But she seeks punishment, doesn't she? She wants to be bad.
She wants to be bad. She wants to be hated. And why? What's the thing about being hated that is refreshing, as it were? What's the thing about
morality? You don't.
no? What's the thing about cutting oneself? Or
Release.
it's a release. It's pain. You know, it's cathartic. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you all go off now and cut yourselves, but to understand how pain operates, how pain focuses the mind. Pain has a great way of making you alert to life. And she's trying to become alert to life. And she does more and more things that is more and more painful. And she still can't get out of this suspended moment. Do you see why? This is why you must be careful with your talents. You must be careful as artists. I'm not saying not to do it. But choose your trembles carefully, because once they start, they start. And you're not going to go, you know, damn, I don't really want it to continue. You need to understand, I mean, what's going on in this poem, in this story, is what happens when you're in the teleological suspension of the ethical, when you are at the singularity. Dane, what are you thinking?
I mean, I know Kierkegaard talks about the idea of temptation when
Who does?
Kierkegaard.
Oh, Kierkegaard, I think you said something.
He talks about temptation when you're inside the ethical. A temptation is something that leads you astray from it. It's a sin. But when you go outside of the ethical, a temptation brings you back. You want to be back in the ethical. You don't
Yes.
want to be outside.
That's right.
And it's a constant.
And so it's a
always
so-called double paradox.
Mm.
That's what. So, I don't know if this has helped you understand Abraham or just oppressed you. But the idea here is that I didn't think the Abraham story was getting through because so many of you are so not into God that just kept getting in the way, or maybe a lot of you were hammered to death with God, and so you just couldn't read it past that. But reading The Dead Man and realizing it's the story of Abraham is what you need to understand. So whichever helps you understand is, yeah.
But, I mean, there was an Akita story where...
There was what?
There was an Akita story where Isaac was killed, though.
Sad. Yes, and what happened?
It doesn't really go into it a whole lot. But there's 3 different Akitas. There's the canonized Akita and then 2 different Akitas.
Yes. And so so let's just say that Bataille is following the death one.
Right.
Okay. So what would happen to Abraham or yourself in this situation? Knowing that Isaac isn't necessarily your child, well, it could be, but is in fact your produce, your art. We'll put it like that, just to. What happens with that? Yeah, what were you going to say, Tom?
Self-annihilation.
It's a form of annihilation, but she doesn't die. The chapter is called Mary Dies, but it keeps going on, right? So Mary doesn't die, actually, or she might die somehow, but not really. She just can't die. and she can't not die. She can't live and she can't die.
Just at the moment, that is reminiscent to me of I can't recall the name of the artist who collected all his works together and burnt them, or broke them up or damaged them.
Who is it?
Michael Landy. Yeah, he burnt them.
Of course, the artist isn't dead, and his work is.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get you to think about, basically there's three things here. So just try and hear it. The first thing is, what does it mean to be in a singularity? What does it mean to not be in relationship to something? Because as soon as you're not in relationship to something, and you're trying to get back into relationship, there's various ways, and none of them were working for poor old Mary. Then who is the count in this?
God?
Yes. The count is God here. And why is God getting annoyed and ill and fighting the whole thing? I mean, by the way, one of the most famous expressions of Bataille was the proclamation that God is a whore. And there was a veneration of the whole position of God being a whore, and that the only way in which you could actually understand God is as being a whore, as oneself being a whore. So you just have the background of this whole movement into the experimental philosophy. But why would the dwarf person, which dwarf is such a terrible word, why would the count, why is that God? Why do you think that was God? Why wasn't it Piero? Or, Piero, the guy that did the dancing and did all the sex, and the good-looking farmhand, who was clearly bisexual and also was helping God, who needed to be jerked off. What was Piero's role? Who was Piero in the story?
Demonic?
No, Piero is the one that was, dancing. You have basically five characters. You have Piero, the dancing person. You have the bartender, the patron. You have Mary. You have the count, and you have the dead Edward. Those are basically the five characters you have in there. So who's Sarah in this? Well, who's Sarah in the Abraham story? The wife.
So it must be Piero.
Yes. Oh, good. And why? How did you get to there?
Well, just because of the complexity of their relationship, the way that I think that Abraham hides from Sarah in the same way that sort of Mary is sort of hiding herself from Piero as well.
Good. Yes. Good. Okay, we're getting there, sort of. Now, I go back to the question of the secret. What's the secret between the writer, in this case Bataille, and this piece of art that we're looking at? So there's the secret that's within the text, the story they're telling, but then there's this other secret that's being set up between the person that wrote it, or the author, and the artwork. What secret is being told there? What's the secret that Bataille has that he's able to use in order to create that? Because the artwork won't work without a secret. That's the other part of the secret. So now you know that your work won't work unless it has this secret. So what's the secret that he's playing with here?
Is it the doubt? Is it doubt?
It's a good guess. Is this just too horribly obtuse?
When you say the artwork, do you mean the text? Or do you mean the actual
This
artwork?
piece works somehow, wouldn't you say? It works, everybody's depressed. I didn't mean to depress everybody here, so I'm sorry. I thought this would be a really good way to get you to see what was going on. It works, so it's a very powerful piece. It works in a way that, that if I just told you the story, there was this woman, someone died, she was upset, she went to the bar, she was naked, she ended up having sex with a lot of people, she threw up on some of them, she got off with the patron, then she went home with the guy that was the count was actually God. Have I lost you yet? It's like, didn't really work as I could recount it, it's not really art, I'm telling you. But the way this was, the fact that you had never read it before, most of you, is there anybody who had heard this story before? No. So that's how powerful this work was. This work was that powerful that in the dark you could read it and be like, what the hell am I reading and why am I having to read this? And not because it was simply nasty words in there, but because there was something searing about it, something very painful about it, something that grabbed you and went, I'm not letting go. That's what you need to understand about how this secret operates.
It's because the artist is bearing his soul, really. It's almost like, it's too painful to read. It's like...
And so who is the artist? The artist we know is Bataille, but how does Bataille show, let's say, his soul? How does he do that in this poem?
The vulnerability of Mary.
The vulnerability of Mary and
what the pain she's in, and that she's moving towards more. She's looking for more pain to deal with the pain.
okay, so Mary is clearly Bataille. The dwarf is, the count person is clearly Bataille. The table is Bataille. The pissing and the vomit is Bataille. It's all of him. He's totally in this whole thing. When you do your artwork, aren't you in it? And if you're not in it, it ain't gonna work. It's just not gonna have the power. It'll be an illustration. It'll be a description. It won't. Or a copy, but a copy in a bad, because some copies can work.
But I mean in the sense, well, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. It's a
was-
paradox. Paradox.
Can I just say, I was
Yeah.
listening more, not to the sort of narrative, which is probably a mistake, but I was listening to the sounds of the words and the structure and so on, and I just felt there was that kind of repulsion and attraction simultaneously in those words, and that it was all this physical and almost, you know, it was very mundane in a sense, and that
Banal. in a
yeah,
certain sense,
that's
yeah.
probably. That's not saying it didn't have power. I didn't mean it like that, but that kind of repeated, kind of very physical description of things. And yeah,
That is a very good point. So
that's the sound of it to me.
I mean, most of your works, no matter if it's digital or ephemeral in a certain way, it will have this kind of viscerality. And if it doesn't, it's not going to work. Clue number one to your work working. So what I'm trying to address here with you is not just give you some philosophical concept that will be useful at dinner parties. Although, I don't know what dinner parties you're going to because it might put everybody to sleep. I want to talk about singularity. No, but it's the singularity that's going to help you understand how the work starts to take on raw, smell, the senses. How it does that? Kierkegaard really dislikes Hegel, or Hegel dislikes Kierkegaard, or one of them. Why? Because in Kierkegaard, and this is why we look at Kierkegaard, just because in about, well, next time we're going to dive into the exciting and thrilling moment. I think we're going to Hegel next, or we're either going to Hegel next or Freud. I can't remember who was on that.
Freud.
Is it Freud? Yeah. Well, soon we're going into Hegel. And in Hegel, his argument is that music, for example, is not art. And it is not art because it cannot be represented. It cannot be represented. It doesn't have, it escapes representation. That is to say, his argument basically, this is a very, thin position, is that it approaches, that something that needs to be known has to approach knowledge, has to approach truth, and that great art can't approach truth. So music, then great art, and then what's on top of great art for Hegel? Starts with a P? Philosophy. It's great how these philosophers find themselves as the example of what is great. But anyway, so where Kierkegaard says one must go away from this absolute truth, belief for him is not believing in God. Belief is believing in belief, which is a slightly different problem. But not a belief that is an empty belief. Not just believing because you can do something, but because there's a visceralness to it. So it's not just, let's say art for art's sake or cutting oneself for cutting's sake. It's because there's a way of focusing, it focuses. And if it doesn't do that, it's not working. It's not really playing with fire. And you have to have a little bit of fire in your work. You don't have to become psychotic, and just because that may not work either. I feel like I've made you feel bad. I don't like that. Yes.
I don't know. This probably says a lot about my morality and stuff too.
I don't have a problem with that.
I was laughing in certain parts of that. I was completely unaffected by that, completely.
But that you were laughing, that's an effect.
Well, no, but it just was so it reminded me of reading Lydia Lunch when I was 15.
Hilarious.
Yeah, fuck you, stink fist. I fucking hate you too.
Yeah.
It was life is shit, and it was just so
I'm glad you said that, because I was sad and I kept smoking, and I thought, is anyone, we're rich here?
Yeah.
Is anybody going to start laughing when we say cock and spunk and
Well, and not just that, but it's just so
anything.
look how shocking I am. I'm shocking you, and I'm like, are you? Because I do all of those things myself. I don't shit on tables, but
That's a lot of information.
Right. But it's just
But okay.
When people are trying to draw this correlational thing, I feel in this way that's oh, and I'm guilty of it too, because all of my artwork feels like stupid bullshit.
Which point?
But trying to draw this parallel between the filth of humanity by our bodily functions, and it's just so shamey and weird and 14 to me.
But that's not what he was doing. He was doing exactly the opposite. But more importantly, let's park that for just a second, because I don't think he was trying to shock. I think, could be wrong. Maybe I'm also a little bit, thing. The question is there something that you think you could come across that would do that? Is there something, okay, so whatever that is, that's the Abraham story. Okay, whether it is Mary falls down dead, or Abraham and Isaac, or whatever is that story, whatever that is, where it grabs you by your short and curlies, either the real ones or the fake ones, that's what's being said here. What I'm trying to get all of us, to understand what it is to enter a singularity. So I didn't feel that you were getting it on the Kierkegaard one, okay? Hence we try this one, the porny version, okay? That didn't seem to, for those that are have a sense of porn in a way that's fun and funny and hilarious and whatever, didn't necessarily do that for you. But think of what would do it. What would be that story? Can you share it?
Can I share what would
Can you think of the story? Not that it has to be a narrative.
Right. Right. No, I definitely have reactions, visceral reactions to artwork that I relate to in some way, but
the point is that it's not the relation. It's
right.
the ana relation, an A-dash relation. It's that. This is what's so complex about. This is what's so problematic about this. It's not that one is trying to. The reason I was weeping and gnashing of teeth when I first came across this is because to me the power of not literally what was going on, but the way in which he was able to weave actual characters in their kind of eccentricity. Not that necessarily Mary or any of these people, maybe because I've been there myself. So I related to being all of those people. And I just thought, wow, that in 24 chapters, in 11 pages, he was able to create an incredible cultural moment. That was why I was moved, but that's me. But yeah.
I saw a film, and it's a bit similar to what Grace was talking about, where, and it's about that sort of being in that state all the time, because this guy's fiance is, he comes home and she's been brutally raped and murdered, and the whole film is that he sets out to avenge her murder, and he sits every day in the station and waits. He knows who it is because it's her cousin. Have you seen that film? It's just the
Powerful,
most.
isn't
Oh,
it?
it's really shocking.
He's in the cage at the end.
Yeah, and he catches him. The police give up completely, and he knows it's the cousin of the girl. He knows for sure that it's it because he was obsessed with her, and he captures the guy, but he locks him up in a farmhouse. It keeps him alive, so he's suffering as well. But every day he goes and feeds him. And years later, the policeman, who's never kind of got over the case, finds them.
He finds them. Well, he never stops looking for
He
them.
never
does
stops looking, both of them. But the fiance's whole life is linked to the murderer as well. So he's suffering it over and over and over. But
Yes.
continually.
I guess my question is it possible how can I get you to peel away your outer, kind of core, armor, whatever it is, so that you can hear what's being said here? So you can hear it with your eye, or what we're observe with your ear. So you get what it is to be in this moment where the ethical is required to be suspended, not because one's trying to shock, but because there's something that is required, that once you're in the realm of the ethical, the artwork is not going to work, is what is the claim. Now, I don't know if you agree with that claim, but that's what the claim is here. Mark, what were you going to say?
I wasn't, but I'll say something if you
Hey,
want.
look.
Okay, what shall I say? So, in that essence, Hegel's interpretation of art is something that is ethical. Art is ethical.
Yes.
It does not have a suspension, or it's two-dimensional. It's dialectical, and then the suspension of the ethical. Reads my notes. It's difficult for us because you're saying you've got to peel back, but as you're saying, it's unsayable to the order of things. So it's quite difficult to kind of break that barrier back because what's in there is sort of unsayable. Like Bataille there, he uses that narrative of a story there because he's saying something that's completely unsayable. So he has to wrap it around in this story, but he's as you said, there is that secret in there. There is that unraveling that comes around it.
And what's the
but
secret?
It's covered from
What's the secret that's being?
Isn't it just diving in like head first to your own presence of what you're doing? I mean, because I imagine that when he was writing this, he had the same sort of responses that we have when we're making our art, and I'm sure that some people, probably most people, look at my stuff and are like, bah, and are completely unaffected by it the way that I was personally unaffected by this, which isn't to say in any way, shape, or form that when he was writing this, he wasn't having his own visceral reactions to it. Like I'm sure he was completely involved with emotionally and, communally with this thing that he was creating without making any sort of value judgment about how it was going to be received. He was just making it there.
But here's where I'm going to try and direct you, all of you, using Arch as the kind of target, to think analytically here, as opposed to, think analytically sensuously, as opposed to analytically some other way. What you're doing is it's almost like a matter of taste, or a matter of shock. Well, I like it, you might not like it. I go here, that's good, okay, there. This is not why we're looking at this. We're not looking at this in order to be shocked. That's why I said I hope that people are not going to be overly taken by this.
I don't mean it that way. I think I'm coming across the point wrong.
No.
I'm not saying that I think that this is that's strictly a matter of taste. What I'm saying is that what I think you're trying to get at with the suspending the ethical is the ability to dive into your own process of that, your own experience of being, unreserved about what it is that you're creating and exploring that.
But if that were all there was, I feel like Peggy Lee song coming on, if that's all there was, then let's just dance and break out the booze and have a ball. There's something else that says, everybody, lift or walk, and, you're told, go find yourself, go dive in, go do whatever. No, something else, this is more, this is almost like the law of physics, or like a law, like, let's say gravity. This is like I'm trying to get you to inhabit a particular law, and not the law of go dive into the darkness, be free like a bird. Not that law. The law that forces you not to speak. The thing that becomes unspeakable. Yes. Must speak.
Yeah, I might completely have misunderstood this, but if it's a singularity, so you can't express it to anyone else because it's you, then surely the secret, you can't really, the secret is that, like, there's nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no other way of explaining it, because that's what he's like trying to, that's the only way that he can express it in terms that we understand.
And even then, as soon as you do that, that's it. That's
Yeah.
it. And the secret doesn't work.
Were you saying earlier you can't have a secret about a secret?
You can have a secret about
That's
a secret.
the
Yeah.
secret.
Yes, that's the secret. Yeah. Yeah.
Should there always be a secret in your work?
Should there or can there? Or, I mean, because there's no intention here.
I mean, I suppose is in.
I always find
Is it always
candidates
something
similar.
that you shouldn't give away in your work? You always hold something
No,
back.
there's, again, it has nothing to do with your intention of wanting or not wanting to give something away. It's not giveawayable.
So you
Okay.
can't.
So what?
So you can't, rather than not wanting to.
It's not, you're not able to.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't make a decision or a non-decision about it. It's
An absolute relationship with the absolute.
an absolute relation with the absolute puts you where?
In the singularity.
Which is
Outside the realm of the ethical.
it's paradoxical. It's a paradox. So your work, for it to work, step one, needs to somehow inhabit a paradox, which is a dimensional thing, not a meaningful thing. So, for example, someone might not understand your work, but your work may not be about understanding. I'm thinking of Rothko here, for example. I mean, what's there to understand about a Rothko? It has nothing to do with understanding, intellectual understanding. And Rothko is just a simple example. I mean, you could point to this picture here, this painting over here. It also has nothing to do with understanding. That's not. You're still disagreeing with this, are you?
Well, no, I'm just. I'm not disagreeing with it. I think there's just. I think it's like similar phrase. I think it's semantical at this point.
See, it's not. This is what. Oh.
See, I think there is. I don't agree with Rothko with that idea, because I think there is great depth in that he believed wholeheartedly in his work. He committed suicide because they were going to use his work in a really commercial setting, and it upset him so much that he killed himself. And I don't think there's any other example of an artist who believes so passionately in. He didn't want to be a commercial artist.
But this is not about intellectual assessment, is it? You're saying he believed so much in his work. He was not saying that this particular colour cannot go into commercial settings. He believed it. He did not analyse it, I suppose. And this is why, because he was forced, maybe he committed suicide because he saw himself or his work being forced out of that singularity. So he couldn't cope with it, so he took the way out.
I think it was also a bit pissed off with what he could see coming without on the horizon. Actually. As well as that's a bit of standing in the dark, but as well as his own self and his own work.
I'm going to try this another way.
Become much.
I feel like we're getting warmer, and then we don't get warm. Get not warm. Okay, so we're going to try it again. What's happening in this course is really a discussion on method, not a discussion on one's point of view. And what that means is that whenever anybody uses the term method and they mean something by it, what that means usually is that there's a path, that there's something on your path that allows you to go to connect an A to a B. Whatever it is, if you want to put yellow on the thing and then green or something. There's a method. A method allows you to understand what comes next, the what comes next thing. So you have moment one, M1, and the question is, how do you get to moment two? How do you get to the next part of your story, as it were? Especially if the story isn't a logical story. Especially if the story isn't a story at all. Like Orozco, for example. There's no actual story. I mean, you're not going to like take it apart and go, well, the red here is when I began the trip, and then, it's not a narrative in that sense. It's not a story in that sense. So you have one moment. How do you get to the second moment? The how is your method. The usual method for when you're very, let's say, not trained, either because for some reason you just are not trained, or you were overtrained and therefore you missed it that way. The first type was called telos. This is the very basic version. And this version, so that we are very clear, get what's going on here. The telos, so you have the ground, your start, and then as you go, around and around and around, you come out and you end up as your tree. Okay, tree. And now the tree, in this case, the goal, or the purpose, or M1, or sorry, M2, M1. Actually, that could also be M1. Anyway, the point is that you start here. So you know that the tree, reading back, gives meaning to your start. This is telos. This is the easiest way to understand this, and a lot of people think that if they're going to be intelligent, or they're going to sound rational, they're going to bring in a telos somehow, one way or the other, so that either this explains that, or that explains this. And this unfolding, it's called continuous or linear, even if it's in a spiral. It's still linear because it's stuck together. So this is a line no matter how you draw it. Okay, that's still a line. That's linear logic. So, does your work follow that way, follow that pattern? Do you start here and end up here and then read it back, or the other way around? That's one type of doing your work. The second one we're doing right now is the Kierkegaard version, we'll call it. Okay, the double paradox, which doesn't do this. What that one does is it has, we're just going to call it a secret, okay, this thing. And this secret cannot be divorced from you. And if it is, both of you go, both of you die. It can't work. But it also doesn't tell you which direction to go in. So the problem is that if you get stuck inside the secret, you are suspended ethically. And in order to get back out of it, no, let me start again. In order to do the work, goes the argument, you have to be able to suspend your disbelief. You have to be able to have some form of a commitment, some form of a something that moves you forward, says, I am this. Or not even have to say it to yourself, you're just going forward. But if you jump into this thing, the problem is that it requires you to give up an ethical relationship to anything, including yourself. And in order for you to feel, in order for you to, so on the one hand, it's not saying if you go in here, anything goes. And if you're out here, then you've got to deal with all the garbage of life. But rather, once you're in there, nothing goes and everything goes. So nothing and everything goes at the same time, and that is a very different scenario. So the only way to begin to progress to moment 2 is to try and feel. And the question is, how do you try and feel? Well, you try and break out of the secret. But usually, if it works as art, you can't break that secret. So you have this paradox going on, the breaking of the secret and then the remaining of the secret. And you'll see it in your work and your comrades' work. You'll see whether or not it's flat in the sense. It doesn't hold something else in there. It doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily know what that something else is, but if it doesn't have that extra something, it's not going to work as a work of art. It's going to work as a description or an illustration or commercial. And so what Kierkegaard is begging you to do is to understand how this thing called the suspending of the ethical is required in order that you can get to something better than truth. And what's better than truth? Art. But technically, art is truth, and so it gets crazy again. And once again, it's like, I can't believe it's happening. I don't know, more questions or no questions? I don't know if you're like, I thought this would be such an illuminating way to explain things, and now I feel like I've just,
Art could be a lie.
What's that?
As well. Art could be a lie as well.
Yes, art is a lie.
It's a lie.
Yeah, and that's the truth. Yes, I always hate that, but anyway, yeah, it is a lie. It's evil.
What's the double paradox? You said Kierkegaard's
The double paradox. Okay, so the first paradox is that you have to suspend the ethical. The double paradox is that in order for it to be true, which it will be true, it's true that it's not true. That's kind of a problem. You have to figure out how one faces the true, or the truth in this case. And that's a doubling of this way in which the suspension operates. It's suspended and not suspended at the same time.
So it's back to that A, not A.
A, not A, in the same space.
Yeah.
Except in this case, it's in the same time. So how can you do exactly the opposite in the same time, in the same space? How can you think like that? That's the key. Yes? No? Horrible? Okay. I'm going to make a suggestion. There's two things I wouldn't mind you taking a look at. Not for shock value, although I like because I think it's sexy. There is The Wicker Man, which I was going to show you tonight, but I think we don't have quite enough time. The Wicker Man, the 1973 version, with Britt Eklund. Anybody see that version? Yeah. Good. Well done. Anybody remember old Britt Eklund slapping the walls? Unforgettable, pretty much. Again, another secret. Does anybody know what The Wicker Man was about? Can anybody say what The Wicker Man was about? There's a creepiness there. Let me try.
It's about cults, I think.
Yeah, that one's, yeah, it is about cult, and about this guy, the virgin.
Obsession.
Is
Anyway,
that saying that this is about sex? This isn't about sex, is it? So it is about cult, but it's on the surface. But it is about.
Yeah, so there's a
Facing
vehicle
uncomfortable.
around which, yeah, thank you, that's a good way to put it. There's a vehicle around which this suspension of the ethical can be told. In this case, it was the vehicle of Mary getting undressed, not dressed, shocking, not shocking, this kind of thing, death, not death. In the Wicker Man, it's the cult, it becomes the vehicle. In your work, what is it? Is it color? Is it rhythm? Is it canvas? What is it? What's the vehicle you're using to push that little secret along? That's what's being asked of you. Okay. Next week, I'm going to mention this because I feel like we've come as far as we can go at the moment now. So I want you to see The Wicker Man, homework assignment. And The Wicker Man, the scene with Britt Eklund called, well, just look up the scene with Willow. It's Willow's song. And if you can't get a hold of it, there's several copies in the library, the 1973 version, or I have a copy in case you can't get it, so you can definitely see it. It's only like 4 minutes long. Again, to think about the secret, how the secret's operating, and which ones, who's where in this, where's the I in this story. And then what we're going to do is we're going to leap into Freud next week. So I want you to be quite conscious of things like how do you sit, and what do you put in your mouth before, after, and during lectures or whatever you're doing. Do you put anything in your mouth? I want you to think about these kind of things. And then we'll see what we go with it. So next week you're going to look at the oral phase, the anal phase, the edible phase. And again, we're going to keep trying to, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So telos, enlightenment, exit, secrets. We're getting a lot on the table here. See how, and not this, in 3 weeks or so, you have a book review due. So one of the things I want to do is, between now and then, go over with you what is a book review. So you know not to hand me I don't like. So you actually look at this thing and go, what's the secret in it? What's being done here? So whether or not you look at Kierkegaard or you look at Maus, that was one of the suggestions. You look at this story that we just did today, or you look at any of the books that are on the required reading list or the unrequired, the sub-required list. Great. Okay? You okay? Sorry to lay that heavy one on you. And we will. And then tomorrow is the dialogues thing. Yes.
Sorry, on here it says the Sigmund Freud introductory lectures, selections in the, which is Dropbox. I'll look at today. There's just one long document. There's no. What are the selections?
That is the selection.
This is the 80-page document.
But it is a selection.
Yeah, that's fine.
It is a
what I
selection.
make clear.
Yeah. That's it. Good. There's also Ratman that you can always look at, and Wolfman. So always fun for a laugh. What? Dropbox. Dropbox and something else. All right. But there is, if you can't find Dropbox, that file cabinet is also the Freud. Speak to Dane.
Yeah. What are you doing?
It's uploading as we speak. Okay.
So we should go to CFAR and then Prof.
Yeah. They'll be there like now. Yeah. Yes, sure. Probably either 9 in the morning or... Yeah, let's do Можно например.
Я поэтому, когда разговаривала с Джонни, я такая, о, необычно.